Just cracking on. For those that don't know me, I'm Dan Maudhub, Managing Director of Wonderful. Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur and I've got a passion for helping businesses grow. And I think that's really what we do at Wonderful. It's what I love doing. In this particular period, I really feel like it's so important. We all have our voice. We all share with each other. We give each other value and we navigate through this period together. So again, for those that don't know, Wonderful is a digital creative agency, and effectively we help data-driven business growth. You know, data is so key in the environment we live in, and you know the way that we do that is through engineering web applications, digital transformation solutions, and we create content and campaigns which enable growth. So yeah, if you haven't engaged with the Scale or Fail brand before, effectively we've been running this program for over a year now, nearly a year, sorry, and actually been running webinars, events. We've got a content hub, and we're just, you know, we've been part of the conversation helping companies to scale. Right now, we're in a survive and thrive mentality. And, you know, there will be winners and losers coming out of this, and there will be those that will scale coming out of this. And we want this to be you guys. We've had some brilliant partners so far, including most recently we did an event with Elite Business and Elite Business Live, a great organization helping entrepreneurs. And so, you know, there's a big conversation happening in the world right now about how do we evolve, how do we change, how do we become, you know, businesses that are ready for future growth. As we know, obviously, you know, there's a global impact to what's happening, and it's happening on a macro and a micro level. So one of the things we want to look at in the next few minutes is some of the macro impact and some of the micro impacts. In other words, what can we do as individuals, as business leaders, as marketing people? How can we navigate through this? But how does it look on a bigger picture as well? So, you know, whilst there's still uncertainty, you know, we know that the crisis is going to pass, and we know that there's the opportunities. In every crisis, there's always an opportunity. So that's what we want to look at over the next few minutes. And obviously, we want to get your questions and answers within that as well. So we'll start off with a quote. We're marketing people. We always start with a quote, right? So one of the pieces of research we've been really studying over the last couple of weeks is from Tony Hillier, who's written a really great article and white paper on successful competitive strategies for recession and recovery. So this is taken from, I do believe, the mid-90s to the late noughties, and it's taken over a good period of time, and he's got some great content. So if you guys want to actually deep dive into what we're saying, we've put the sources in every single slide to prove that we're not making it up. You know, we're not the marketing people that make it up. We've got some really credible sources of information. And so everything we're going to talk about actually comes from a valid source. So quick quote: crises can punish the dithering and reward the committed. Brands that get it right, maintaining or increasing market spend during crises, are able to capture up to 3 times more market share through a downturn and rebound faster and stronger when the good times return for lasting competitive gains. That's so important. So let's talk about 2 key things there. One is how we respond in the downturn, because let's be honest, we're in it. And then how we rebound faster and stronger when the good times return. So there's 2 key mindsets there. One is the downturn, 2 is the bouncing back. And the next slide, hopefully you can see this, just really looks at, again, it's a different source, same source, but looking at those brands that increase their market share in comparison to their market spend. So and this is looking at stats within the first 2 years of recovery. So in other words, you make significant market share gains if you continue to increase and work on your marketing spend. Those that cut obviously make smaller gains. Those that maintain, they make an incremental increase. And those that increase their spend get significantly increased market share. Now, obviously, we've got to take these statistics in the context of our ability to do that, in the context of our cash flow. You know, we're all worried about the basics right now, which is the cash flow, which is staff retention, it's business retention for some of us. But it's really interesting to see how over a period of time, in the past, how these statistics stack up. Again, looking at a different source, but some of the increases in share of market and share of voice. So there's two things here we're talking about. One is a share of voice. So in other words, how your share of voice increases in the market over a period of time, according to your market gain, according to the share of market growth. And again, you can see that by companies cutting investment by 50% for a year, takes 2 years to recover their lost market share. So in other words, if you cut half your budget now, the statistics show that it takes 2 years to actually increase, or sorry, to get back to your market share, let alone increase that share. The statistics also show that those that increase exposure, so exposure is not necessarily budget, it's exposure, during a downturn can gain up to 3 times more share. So that's share of market and share of voice in the first 2 years of recovery. So we're not necessarily talking about budgets here. We're talking about share of voice, and we're talking about exposure. So there's lots of different ways in which we can do that, and we'll cover off a few of those practicals as we go through the webinar. One of the precedents we got is the SARS epidemic. It wasn't a pandemic. It was largely in China. It was largely contained to certain areas. I know it kind of impacted all of us in a certain way, but not in the way that COVID-19 has. One of the interesting case studies that came out of that was two things. One was the mass internet adoption in China as people looked to mobile devices and web. And then also it triggered the digital entertainment and e-commerce revolution because people were confined to their homes, obviously. Now we're talking about this 18 years ago. So we're talking, we're 18 years more evolved, maybe. I don't know if we are actually 18 years more evolved, but we are obviously more evolved in terms of our internet adoption. We are in our web usage, mobile usage, our understanding of e-commerce. But in 2002, the SARS epidemic caused an absolute revolution in terms of the digital entertainment and e-commerce area. One of the key brands that really capitalized on that, we all know them now as a semi-household name in the West as well as China, was Alibaba, which actually started as a B2B e-commerce platform. So we know it now as a global consumer platform, but it started as a B2B platform. And what it did, I mean, it was incredible. In March 2003, Alibaba's B2B e-commerce business added 4,000 new members and 9,000 listings each day. I mean, those stats are absolutely incredible. And with a 3 to 5 times increase over the pre-SARS rate. So what it did, Alibaba became the go-to platform for businesses to be able to talk about and sell their services, their solutions, their products, whatever it may be. I mean, 4,000 new members and 9,000 listings a day is an incredible activation rate. Now, obviously, in 2020, we have so many different platforms and so many different opportunities to do that. We're not restricted to one platform. Particularly, most people I'm speaking to are going to be B2B service providers. So we're not necessarily selling products, but we're selling services and solutions to other businesses. So again, that opens up the platform and the opportunity for us. Chinese suppliers are faced with few options, and those that invested more on the Alibaba platform just saw unbelievable growth through that period, obviously, as did Alibaba itself. So just kind of from the research that we've done, and this source is from Ogilvy, who've got a brilliant book around navigating through difficult times. They've got a brilliant bit of research and white paper around it. We've just taken 5 very, very quick things from it before we get into the practicals. So number one is in terms of these black swan events, as they're called, so events like SARS, Ebola, COVID-19, they're really moments of truth for brands and for marketers. And they're really, really key moments where we really have to live out our purpose, our values, our commitments, but also they become big opportunities to be agile. We look at our creativity, we look at our spirit, we look at real things that either make a brand during this season or break a brand. Having a share of voice, having a tone of voice, having something to say in this season is absolutely vital. And we'll give you some practicals in the next couple of minutes. Number 2 is that there will be an after. We don't know when, but we know it's going to happen. And we know that when it happens, for a lot of our organizations and a lot of our industries, there's going to be pent up demand. I mean, there's the obvious examples at the moment where travel, leisure, tourism, every industry is affected right now. But the events industry, you know, the demand is still there, just that we can't give the supply. So demand will be pent up, and there's going to become a huge surplus in demand unless we're careful. We can still be part of the supply chain. Number three is it'll be a different place. You know, these lasting shifts, I think these shifts are both in attitude, in the way people want to engage with your brand, but they're behavioral shifts in terms of how people engage with your brand. They're going to create new needs and new priorities, but obviously they also create new competitive opportunities. So, for example, we're working with a software company at the moment. Fundamentally, they sell software, but actually, one of the key things they do is their value proposition is really to educate, inform, and inspire their clients. So not only do they know how to use the software, but they know how to grow their business through using the software. So they're much more around the education piece right now. Now, one of their big drivers is obviously events. And being able to educate one-to-one and educate in the room. So what we're working on with this client right now is an online platform where they can still reach the same client base with actually a more wider and more in-depth content, because they've got more opportunity to engage with their clients whilst they're at home. So whilst they're not busy running their businesses and may only turn up to an event once a quarter, they can talk to them on a weekly basis, daily basis if they need to. So the opportunity for this client to move from just being a software company that educates every now and again to being the go-to content platform in this period is really creating a new competitive opportunity for them. So, you know, then there are opportunities for all of us to be able to do something similar and to really look at this. We'll come on to that later. The key is managing time horizons. So we've got short, medium and long-term needs and goals and opportunities, which we'll unpack later on. And I think the final thing to say is preparing to fail. Failing to prepare, means we're preparing to fail. You know, we really want to be able to encourage you in this webinar and help you practically, if we can, to actually prepare for this season, prepare for the next 6 months. Don't, you know, we've got the emergency stuff that we're doing, that many businesses have been doing now, you know, dealing with the immediate crisis. We've got to prepare short, medium and long term. So that's an absolute key to the success in the next season. So hopefully we've just given you a quick overview. Each of those slides, to be honest, is a webinar in its own rights, but we've said we'll keep it to 30 minutes. We're 15 minutes in, so we're going to get to some Q&As in a minute. Before we do, we just want to give you 3 practical takeaways, which we're going to unpack. And I'm going to hand over to James and Phil in a bit to help unpack these with me. But number one is you've got to make sure that your brand matters across all of these timescales. We'll come on to that. Number 2, as I've kind of said a little bit, don't go into your shell. Maintain efforts and adapt to channel mix. James will go into that much more detail. And number 3 is transform to lead the changed landscape. We've got to accept the landscape's going to change. For some of us, it'll be a minimal change. It'll be incremental shifts. For some others of us, it may be more fundamental. So we're just going to go into the first one, which is making your brand matter. So right now, short-term question I've got for you guys is, what's the react phase look like? How is it? And I'm sure you've already done this. We're a couple of weeks in, but short-term, it's about reacting. It's about being agile and optimizing. So speaking to each of our clients, talking to them about where they're at, hearing, getting their feedback, hearing how you can best serve them in this time. This is an amazing opportunity in the short term to serve our client base, to serve our industry, to look at them and say, how can we help you navigate through your challenges as a business? So good examples of that have been people like Brewdog, that obviously Brewdog, they're an alcohol brand. You know, their value proposition is always about connecting into that community. Well, they formed a new community, they forged a new community. So they've adapted their product range to produce, obviously still produce alcohol, but to also produce a hand sanitizer gel. You know, that's something that the consumer market needs right now. They know that need's very obvious, and they adapted to it. Same thing with Zara, where they're producing scrubs and face masks. They've got the production line, they've got the raw material, they've got the supply chain. So they've just changed the product range, you know, or evolved the product range to actually help the consumers right now. Bad examples, William Hill. I mean, there's loads of bad examples, but William Hill, Obviously, betting company, football's off, the betting's off, there's nothing to bet on. So they offered an international soccer action, and you can bet on. That turned out to be fixtures from the Belarus Premier League. I'm not sure how authentic that is. Medium term recovery phase. So how do we make up for lost ground? So where's the leverage shifts and the drive in momentum, and where do we find that competitive edge? Is it looking at product development? Can you take some of your products and your services and shift those into monthly subscriptions, shift those into online content pieces, shift those into being able to do video conferences rather than face-to-face? How can you shift and reshape some of your business, A, so that you can keep that momentum and gain momentum, and B, so that you can evolve into what will become long-term, which is the new normal? How does that look? Now, some of the questions around that, again, this is a whole webinar in its own rights, and I'm going through quite quickly in order to get the content across to you, but I'd love to chat with you afterwards. If your proposition is robust, the problem that your service or product already solves is defined. In other words, people know why they can buy from you. They know why they engage you. They know why they buy from you. So actually what you're looking at right now is how to. How do I sell to those clients that I know I add value to? How is it they can consume my brand, my product, my service right now? That's a good place to be. If you're sitting there right now thinking, do you know what? I'm not sure what my actual value proposition is, the intrinsic and explicit value that I offer in my customers, then now's a good time to look at that. What's the value that you're offering your customers in the short term that will lead to medium-term gains? And that's a conversation you can have. You can talk to your customers about it, talk to your stakeholders about it, friends and family, come talk to Wonderful about it. We'll just have a chat with you and help you unpack that, because that's so important that you get your brand proposition right. Make your brand matter in this period of time. That's the first point. But the second one is adjusting your channel and your mix. So effectively, if you just look at the statistic on the right-hand side and looking at the percentage of first timers, so people that are consuming content and consuming brands for the first time, you can see some of them. I mean, again, some of these might be pretty obvious because, demand justifies supply. When the need is there, people will supply it. But online medical consultancy, online education, remote working, software, paying for digital entertainment, all of those types of things are pretty obvious in terms of, people need to consume things online because we're locked in. But what does that mean for your business? What does that mix mean for your business in terms of how you connect over video conferencing, how you connect over social media, your email channel? Do you know the amount of people we speak to and say, how are you doing with your CRM activity right now? Have you segmented it still, and you're talking to customers or potential customers in a relevant way? Oh no, we've still got everything just in one long MailChimp list, and we've still got it all in spreadsheets. And then you wonder why people aren't engaging with you, because you're saying the same thing to multiple different audiences. So it's so absolutely vital that you get your channels and your content mix right during this time. So look at your customers as humans and say, where are they right now? What are they doing right now? How can I help them right now? And that's CRM, as I mentioned. That's your email activity. It's your social media comms. It's your video comms. It's your client comms. It's newsletters. Those things are still hugely relevant right now. Your clients and customers still need the value that you give them. So give it to them in the right way. Number 3 is sort of looking at leading the change landscape. So, this is something that we take clients through quite often. So I suppose this is our intrinsic mindset. But looking at our brand transformation piece. So reevaluate your positioning, your proposition. We've looked at that already. I won't go into that. But looking at your values, turn crisis time CSR into ongoing purposeful engagement. I'm really hoping that actually what comes out of this is much more, one of the things that come out of this is much more authenticity from brands and from clients. Sometimes when you talk about brand values, they can become very boardroom led. We're honest people and we love integrity and all of that standard stuff that should just be an implicit value. You shouldn't have to say it, it should just be implied. Whereas now we've got the opportunity to actually develop real brand values that people buy into now, but they buy into the long term as well. one of the other areas of transformation right now is in customer experience, the CE, customer experience, the CX transformation. So how customers really connect with you and that journey that you take them through. That comes from your marketing activity, from your sales activity, to how do you do tours when you can't actually do a tour? How can we do virtual tours? How can we do virtual product demos and offerings? How can customers still buy into us during this journey? Because that may be completely relevant to when you come out of this journey, and actually you've become the go-to people for that particular customer experience or that particular area of customer experience. And lastly, digital transformation. That's a huge opportunity as well, because obviously we are by definition a digital first economy right now. And again, the question would be, are you set up to be a digital first business? Is your CRM activity in place? Is your lead generation and lead monitoring activity in place? How are you set up to actually become one of those people at the cutting edge and leading in your industry? Now, for some of us, that might be smaller changes. For others, that might be more fundamental. But setting up now is absolutely vital. So yeah, hopefully that's, there's a lot more we could say around each topic. I've been 24 minutes, so love to open it up for Q&A. So hopefully everyone can see the Q&A section within the webinar, and we'd love for you to be able to input that. Write down some questions, put them in there, and myself, Phil, and James will answer those questions for you. We did get sent some questions before the webinar, and we've got some humdinger questions there, so I'm hoping the other guys can answer those for me. So get into the Q&A section now, or the chat section, and let's get some questions going. Some of the ones I'm going to answer is, how do you promote our business without being perceived as taking advantage of the situation? Yeah, that's obviously that's a tricky question. How do you promote your business without being perceived as taking advantage of the situation? The simple question is are you genuinely helping people? Are you adding value? Are you actually helping them with your product, with your solution, with your service, or with giving, with being able to help? People, people will see authenticity for what it really is, authentic. So if you write backhanded comments on social media, for example, saying, hey, you guys are doing a great job. Hey, how about you connecting with us on this? They know that's not authentic. Or you're doing a great job. By the way, we sell this. Doesn't work. It's not authentic. You're taking advantage of the situation. Authenticity is giving without wanting to receive, and so there are really obvious ways of doing it. The other side to that coin, though, is that, businesses know we have to evolve, right? We have to take advantage, not of the situation in terms of the negative, but the positives there are in the situation, which is new ways of connecting with customers. I think people would fully appreciate the fact that businesses are having to evolve and change. So reaching out to customers, the potential customers, and saying to them, look, we're thinking of launching this new online service. Would you buy this? In the tough times we're in, we're thinking of launching a new product or solution. Would you be interested? That's okay. That's authentic. That's your business evolving, not you capitalizing on someone else's, misdemeanors or in a negative situation. Next question, how do we maintain customer relations having to close our physical shop? Hopefully we've answered that. We live in a digital and social media first environment anyway, in terms of the UK economy. It's knowing how best to engage in conversation. What's your tone of voice? What is it you guys are really known for and can have a part of a conversation in? What's your share of market in this season? How do we shift from online to offline? That's a big question. That's a big question. We've got a question coming in here. What's the biggest challenges you guys are facing at the moment? Yeah, feel free to answer that. How can we innovate to find new ways to deliver solutions and services? I think the first thing to do is do some market research, talk to people, talk to your clients, talk to your customers. What will help them right now? And then basically put together almost, in our terms, we call it MVP, but minimum viable product. Put together something that you can put out into the market and begin to get feedback and results from. And that way it will begin to show that step change to evolving your products or services or solutions. Last question I'm going to answer, just because of time, and I said I keep it to 30 minutes, is how do we extend our brand proposition into services and content to keep our audiences informed and connected? Wow, that's a big question if I wrote that. You know, you've got to do the others first. You've got to look at what it is you're offering first and why you're offering it. What's the value that you're bringing? And then the last thing is how. The obvious hows right now are online and social first, but those hows will increase. You know, as the lockdown finishes and as things start to get back down into more business as usual, people still want to connect into your services and into your products. So make sure you're staying connected throughout. Don't hide in this period and all of a sudden expect in 3 months' time, 6 months' time for business to come knocking on your door. Do not hide. Be informed and connected right away. So just got a question here from Crawford Taylor. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Just that you've used past examples like SARS to suggest how to proceed. Is this right, or is, you know, COVID-19 so very different, so on and so forth, that a different approach is necessary? I mean, I've got two sides to that answer. One side is, I think for some businesses, it's about navigating carefully through this season, so making incremental changes and shifts. So taking some of the principles we've shared today and applying those incrementally to your business. So talk to your customers, find out what they want, find out what they need, evolve your products, your services and solutions into something that you can offer them now. They're incremental shifts that all businesses can make. I think for other businesses, they're going to be more fundamental shifts. And those fundamental shifts are really, really business specific. So for example, some of our clients have had to completely shut down operations, and therefore their revenue loss is huge. You know, the no operations, no revenue, no profit. So we're working with them to look at how to repurpose some of their business in the short term, but also how to survive long term. You know, let's not paper over the cracks here. There are a lot of businesses and a lot of industries that are really going to struggle to survive, let alone thrive and scale. So I think a different approach is necessary, yeah. And I think what we've spoken about today will work for a good percentage of businesses if you are planning and executing it accordingly. But for some companies, the shift is going to be more fundamental, particularly those companies and those of us that have got cash flow challenges from day dot. Then you're in business survival mindset rather than business thriving mindset. So working through that survival piece is absolutely obviously the key to being able to plan medium term. I hope that helps, Crawford. We'd love to hear from you. Obviously, you know, we want to be part of the conversation. We're bringing some content today. Hopefully we've given you some value today. But the question I've got for you guys is, what are the burning topics and questions for your business right now? You know, what things do you really want to find out about? And are there any other topics you'd like to discuss with us on future webinars? So one of the lessons we've got as a business is we've got lots of different people that contribute into our business, from finance, from investors. The Scale of Fail program has had investment input. It's had finance talks. We've had talks from legal professionals, you know, IP talks, you know, brand professionals know how to do products and shape products and services. So anything that you think is relevant to you guys, please do drop me an email and we'll try and bring some content partners on to contribute as well. And obviously we'll add any value where we can. So please email dan.maudhub, MAUDHUB, @bewonderful.co.uk with any burning topics, any questions you want to find out about. If you want to chat further about any of this stuff, then please do drop me an email. You know, we want to be part of the conversation in what you guys are going through right now. If you want any more of this content, sign up to our content hub. Just go onto scaleorfail.co.uk website. And there's my number. If you want to give me a ring, drop us an email. You know, thank you so much to our clients that have been on this. Really appreciate this. And hopefully, obviously, we're going to navigate through this period with you. For those new contacts that we've made and there's new contacts that are on here, stay in contact. You know, we don't have all the answers, but if we can be part of the conversation with you, we'd love to be there. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I've gone 5 minutes over. Sorry I couldn't get James and Phil on to contribute. But yeah, please keep dropping your questions afterwards. And yeah, we'll keep the conversation going. Have a good afternoon, everyone. And hopefully you've enjoyed the webinar and speak to you all soon. Take care.